So Bank of America in 2008, of course, was a disaster. Now, it had to be bailed out with everyone else, all the top banks. One of the ways that it was bailed out is the Fed came in and bought something from AIG, which is an insurance group. Now, you said, what does that have to do with Bank of America? Good question. Well, AIG was sold a bill of goods from Bank of America, and what the Fed did was they took it off the hands of AIG so that Bank of America wouldn't be held responsible for it. Now, they went and finished the deed recently. I'm going to tell you all about that, which is another secret bailout for Bank of America. So, let me explain. Bank of America had sold these mortgage securities to AIG for about $39.2 billion. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the easy explanation. That's the value that AIG had it. Now, it turns out they were garbage, and they were only worth, at most, $20.8 billion. After the bailouts, AIG sold it, quote-unquote, to the Fed. It was packaged in something called Maiden Lane 2 for $20.8 billion. So you see what happened there was AIG lost $18.4 billion. Part of the reason they lost that is because Bank of America lied to them about what was in the mortgage securities. Now, remember, AIG at that point owned by the U.S. taxpayers. So we just got screwed for about $18 billion. By the way, what goes to the Fed also screws us. That's a different story. Now, AIG then sues Bank of America and says, look, I lost $18 billion, and $7 billion of that was definitely because of fraud that Bank of America did. Now, they got to prove that in court, but it's an open question, and they might even settle out of court for $2 billion, $5 billion. It's unclear, right? Now, here's where the Fed comes back into play recently. July of last year, turns out the Fed did two things. One, they gave a legal opinion saying, oh, no. When we bought Maiden Lane 2 from AIG, the insurance group, it was if Bank of America was going to give anybody money for fraud, it would be us. Now, but wait a minute, that's not in your contract with AIG. And that's not what AIG says. There's no witnesses to that effect. But the Fed says, no. If there was going to be any money, it would come to us. Okay, we're supposed to take their word for it. Second of all, they say, look, on top of what Bank of America might owe us, they also have these two other mortgage securities that they owe us $43 million on. So they do a settlement where they get $43 million, and then they say, not only are we settling these two tiny little mortgage security issues, but we're also relieving you of your duty to pay any of that $7 billion back. Okay, think about how insane that is. If somebody owed you $7, you might say, and if they're a friend, you might say, hey, you know what? Don't sweat it, man. It's $7, not a big deal. If somebody owed you $7,000, you going to let it go? Would you let it go with your best friend? Would you let it go with your cousin? I don't know about that. Now, how about $7 billion? The New York Fed, which is supposed to regulate Bank of America, look out for us so that Bank of America doesn't rob us, helps Bank of America rob us. So, $7 billion, don't worry about it. Now, AIG says, wait a minute, I didn't agree to that. He says, by the way, I'm the one who lost $18 billion. Now, a lot of that at the time was taxpayer money. Now it's a little bit more complicated because they've paid some of that back, so some of it is shareholder money. But either way, they say, look, Bank of America defrauded us. We're taking them to jail. We need that money back because they were in the wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. They did something wrong. The Fed saying, no, how dare you? That is our beloved banks. We protect the banks at all costs. Now, this has many downsides, one of which is pointed out by Walker Todd, former official at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. And he says, quote, if the central bank starts releasing binding legal claims for nominal compensation, it looks like just one more element of the secret or backdoor bailout of the banking system. Well, Mr. Todd, it looks like that because it is that. Now, you want to know who's on the board of the New York Fed? The top banks in the world. Weird how the top banks would decide that they should help the top banks. How insane a system do we have set up so that the banks are supposed to regulate themselves, and so when you say, hey, what are you going to do about that $7 billion that could go back to the American taxpayer, they decide, nah, you know what? Don't worry about it. American taxpayer, they don't need it. Hey, Bank of America, just go ahead and keep the $7 billion. It's sick, man. It's sick. How do we allow this in a democracy? They did horrible transactions that were possibly fraudulent that should be in a court of law right now. And they made billions off of it. We bailed them out, and we don't get it back. In fact, we get one more secret bailout after another after another. They did this in July of last year. They keep robbing us blind, man.